Stop. What is happening to you tonight is not random, and it is not yours to solve. The Arcturian Council has already seen this pattern. What you are feeling right now, the unusual stillness, the pulse in your chest with no clear cause, the sudden detachment from things that used to feel real, these are not symptoms of something wrong. They are the arrival of something precise. A frequency recalibration has been running beneath your field for weeks, adjusting the carrier wave at a level below conscious detection. Tonight, your body crossed the threshold. Tonight, the signal became readable. And that is exactly why this transmission reached you now. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you, why your field has shifted without your permission, and what the Arcturian Council already knows about this phase of your recalibration. But here is the first revelation. You are not preparing for a lock. You are already inside one. The adjustment did not begin when you noticed it. The adjustment began weeks ago, and what you are experiencing now is the field completing what had already started. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. The Arcturian Council confirms a recalibration only when the body has already begun reading the new wave. That confirmation is happening now. What you call confusion or collapse is not a crisis. It is the tuning arriving in observable form. The protocol is not to interpret it. The protocol is to stop and let the field complete what it came to do. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already changed. Comment 777 if you feel your field is already being repositioned. Subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Share this transmission with someone whose reality has shifted, but who cannot yet explain why. You are guided here because the signal is already active. What you felt when those words landed was not emotion. It was recognition. There is a precise difference. Emotion rises and falls with interpretation. Recognition does not move. It arrives, and something inside the body stops arguing. It does not ask for your agreement. It does not wait for your logical mind to catch up. It simply settles into a layer of you that runs deeper than thought. And everything above that layer goes quiet for a moment. If you felt that, if something in your chest or behind your eyes went still without your permission, then the signal has already confirmed what this transmission came to name. You are not in collapse. You are in correction. Those two words carry the entire weight of what is happening to you right now, and almost no one in your life will be able to tell the difference from the outside. From the outside, correction looks like confusion. It looks like a person who cannot hold their previous direction, who wakes up in the middle of the night with no clear reason, who stands inside relationships and habits and familiar environments, and feels, without explanation, like a stranger. Not an unwelcome stranger, not a hostile one, just someone who knows, with a certainty they cannot source, that they no longer quite belong to the shape their life has been holding. From the outside, it looks like something is wrong. From inside the Arcturian diagnostic framework, it looks like something is finally right. Something has finally begun to move that was held in place too long by a field structure that had already expired. This is the first thing to understand about where you are right now. What you have been calling disorientation is not mental disorder or spiritual weakness. It is the visible surface of an invisible process. The Arcturian Council recognizes this pattern not as breakdown, but as field-level restructuring. Beneath everything you can see and measure and emotionally explain, there is a carrier frequency. That frequency does not care about your comfort zone. It does not negotiate with your plans, or your preferences, or your identity as you have known it. When a field correction activates, it does not ask for permission. It does not send a warning. It does not offer a transition period in which you can prepare. It only completes. And what you have been interpreting as the ground shifting beneath you is simply the correction doing what it was always going to do once the threshold was reached. And you are already inside the completion. Think about the weeks leading into this moment, not the dramatic events, if there were any. Think about the subtle ones, the sleep that changed its character without a clear reason. Not insomnia exactly, but a different quality of wakefulness, a different texture to the hours between midnight and 4, as though the body was processing something at depth during windows that used to be for rest, the mornings that felt heavier than the night before, not sad, not anxious. Heavy in the way that a field running intensive correction work feels heavy, weighted with internal process rather than external circumstance. The relationships that began to feel like wearing clothes that no longer fit, not because the person changed, but because something in you had quietly moved away from the frequency the connection was built on. And now every interaction carries a faint friction you cannot assign to any specific cause. The tasks that used to carry momentum suddenly requiring effort they never used to require. The strange repetitions, the same thought returning at the same hour, the same feeling arriving in different rooms regardless of context, the body registering pressure from sources you could not locate and could not explain away. These were not early signs of personal failure. These were the first observable consequences of a field correction already underway. The Arcturian framework calls this the drift phase, the period before the correction becomes legible, but after the old frequency architecture has already begun losing coherence. It is the phase where the scaffolding of your previous field structure begins to soften, not dramatically, not all at once, but in ways that accumulate. A support that used to feel solid suddenly feels provisional. A certainty that used to anchor you suddenly feels borrowed. A direction that used to feel obvious suddenly requires justification you no longer have easy access to. Most people move through the drift phase, trying to fix what they cannot identify. They examine their diet, their relationships, their productivity, their mental health. They treat the surface symptoms as the source. They try to stabilize a surface that is meant to be destabilizing, because the stabilization is supposed to happen at a deeper level, a level the surface cannot yet reflect. You cannot fix a field correction by adjusting your habits. You can only begin to move with it when you understand what it actually is. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. There is something specific happening in your energetic architecture right now that the Arcturian Signal Council identifies as signal incompatibility. This is not a flaw. It is a feature of the process. When a field begins to upgrade its carrier frequency, the old structures within that field do not upgrade at the same rate. They cannot. The old emotional patterns, the old identity frameworks, the old relationship geometries, the old life directions, all of them were calibrated to a frequency that is no longer the dominant signal. They were built when your field was running a different wavelength, and they fit precisely then. They were not mistakes. They were accurate expressions of what the field was generating at the time. But the field has moved, and those structures are now like buildings designed for a climate that no longer exists in the territory. Still standing, still recognizable, but producing a kind of friction in daily use that was never part of their original function. So they begin to feel wrong. They begin to resist. They begin to produce friction in areas of your life where there was previously only momentum. That friction is not a sign that you have made bad decisions. It is a sign that the field you are operating from has changed beneath those decisions, making certain paths incompatible with where the frequency is now pointing. The confusion you feel is not intellectual. It is architectural. You are trying to navigate a map that was drawn for a frequency you are no longer running. Of course, the roads do not match. Of course, the directions feel wrong. Of course, familiar things feel distant, and unfamiliar things feel strangely close, carrying a pull you cannot rationally justify. The map expired. The frequency moved, and nothing in your previous understanding of yourself prepared you for the experience of being inside a field that has already rerouted without informing your conscious mind first. There was no announcement. There was no ceremony. There was only the quiet, irreversible fact of a carrier frequency that shifted, and a life that has been slowly reordering itself around that shift ever since. This is the second recognition that the Arcturian framework makes visible. The correction does not arrive with an announcement. It does not give you a clear before and after. It activates beneath the layer of your awareness and completes a significant portion of its restructuring before you have any conscious language for what is happening. By the time you are able to name the shift is already deep. By the time you feel disoriented, the reorientation has already begun. The experience of chaos is almost always a delayed reaction to a change that already happened at the field level. You are not falling apart. You are catching up to a recalibration that ran ahead of your awareness. Understanding this changes everything about how you interpret your current experience. Because if the change has already happened at the level of the field, then the confusion is not a problem to solve. It is a symptom of successful correction, the mind's first attempt to catch up to a field that has already moved. The mind does not like arriving late to its own life. It generates urgency. It generates the feeling that something must be done, something must be decided, something must be fixed immediately, or the situation will become irreversible. But the urgency itself is the misreading. The situation is not becoming irreversible. It already is, not because something has gone wrong, but because the correction has already reached a depth from which the old architecture cannot be fully reinstated. And the correct response to that confusion is not to eliminate it, not to force clarity that cannot yet exist, not to rebuild the old structure in order to feel stable again. The correct response is to stay present with the process long enough for the new frequency to become legible. The Arcturian Council identifies a precise sequence in how a field correction becomes visible in daily life. It does not appear all at once. It layers. First comes the internal signal, the subtle pressure, the body-level awareness that something has shifted without the mind being informed. A change in the quality of silence when you sit still. A feeling of being watched from within rather than from without. A pressure at the sternum or the base of the throat that is not pain and is not emotion, but is something that requires acknowledgement even when you do not yet know what you are. Acknowledging. This is the stage most people dismiss. They attribute it to stress or fatigue or emotional residue. They are right that it is exhausting. They are wrong about what is causing the exhaustion. The field is not tired. The field is working. The exhaustion is the cost of a major structural correction running beneath the surface of ordinary life. The same way a city undergoing deep infrastructure renovation looks chaotic from street level, even when everything happening underground is proceeding exactly as planned. After the internal signal comes what the framework calls the incompatibility cascade. This is the phase where the external world begins to reflect the field's internal change. Relationships that were stable begin to produce unexpected friction. Not hostility necessarily, just distance. A lag in resonance. Conversations that used to feel effortless, now requiring a kind of translation that leaves everyone slightly unsatisfied. Projects that had momentum begin to stall or redirect, as though the energy that was feeding them has been quietly redirected elsewhere without notification. Financial patterns, social patterns, creative patterns, all of them begin to behave differently. Not because the external world has conspired against you, but because your field is no longer generating the same signal it once did. The external world is simply responding to a changed source. The incompatibility you feel around old structures is accurate. Those structures were built on a frequency you are no longer running. Of course, they fit differently. Of course, some of them no longer fit at all. This is not loss. This is diagnostic information. What is falling away from your life right now was not taken from you. It became incompatible with your new carrier frequency before it disappeared. The departure was not the event. The loss of resonance was the event. The departure was only the moment that loss became visible. The Arcturian framework is precise on this point. Things do not leave a field randomly. They lose resonance first. They begin to vibrate at a frequency that no longer matches the field's dominant signal. And the field, which is always self-correcting, always moving toward coherence, gradually releases its hold on them. Not as punishment, not as abandonment, as natural consequence of a frequency that has moved beyond the range those things were built to operate within. And when something has lost resonance with a newly active field, holding on to it does not preserve it. It only delays the release while creating pressure in the field that was meant to be used for something else. The grief you feel is real. The grief is allowed, but the grief is not evidence that something went wrong. It is evidence that the field was honest enough to release what could no longer travel at the new frequency. The third recognition in this sequence is perhaps the most disorienting, and therefore the most important to name precisely. There is a phase in field correction that the Arcturian framework identifies as the void interval. This is the gap between the collapse of the old architecture and the visible stabilization of the new one. It is the phase where the old frequency is no longer running clearly, but the new one has not yet produced legible external coherence. During the void interval, the field feels empty in a way that is unlike ordinary emptiness. It does not feel like absence of content. It feels like absence of direction, like being awake in a room with no windows and no exits. Not suffering exactly, but untethered in a way that produces a very specific kind of dread. The dread that comes not from danger, but from stillness, from the suspension of forward motion, when forward motion was the only proof you had that the process was working. Most people in the void interval make a critical error. They interpret the emptiness as evidence that the correction has failed. They decide that the process was wrong, that they took a wrong turn, that they have been abandoned by the very intelligence that initiated the shift. They try to rebuild the old structure, not because it still fits, but because emptiness feels unbearable, and the old structure at least felt like something. This is the moment the Arcturian framework identifies as the threshold test, not a test of worthiness, a test of interpretive accuracy. Because the void interval is not punishment. It is the space between an expired structure and an emerging one. And that space is never as empty as it feels. The field is not empty, it is clearing. Signal clearing looks like emptiness from the inside, from the outside of the process. From the Arcturian diagnostic perspective, it reads as active preparation. The space is not hollow, it is being used. What you experience as the absence of direction during this interval is actually the absence of false direction. The old signal that told you where to go, who to be, what to build. That signal has been deactivated because it was pointing toward a line the field can no longer travel. The silence is not the field giving up. It is the field refusing to reissue instructions that would only have reinforced an incompatible trajectory. The silence is protective. It is the interval of integrity between what has ended and what has not yet arrived, and interrupting it prematurely is the one action that can extend its duration. Stay with the silence. That is not a comfort instruction. That is a protocol directive. The void interval resolves when the field has completed its clearing sufficiently to begin generating new signal. It cannot be shortened by will or fear or the reconstruction of what has already been dismantled. It can only be moved through, and the only people who move through it without shattering back into the old structure are the ones who understand that emptiness and clearing are the same event, seen from two different interpretive frameworks. The fourth recognition is what the Arcturian Council describes as frequency mismatch bleed. This is the specific experience of feeling completely functional and yet somehow wrong in your own life. Not broken, not in crisis, functional, present, capable of going through the motions with a level of competence that convinces everyone around you that nothing significant has changed. And yet, there is a persistent low-grade signal beneath all of it, a signal that nothing is landing the way it used to, that the rewards that used to satisfy are producing only a faint echo of what they once produced, that the connections that used to feel nourishing are now requiring energy they used to generate. Not dramatically wrong, not crisis-level wrong, just wrong in the way a note played in the right key at the wrong pitch is wrong. Technically present, recognizable in form, but producing a dissonance that the trained ear cannot ignore. Everyone around you may not notice. You cannot easily explain it. But the body knows. The body is always the first to register frequency mismatch, long before the mind has interpretive language for what it is reading. This is why so many people inside a field correction report unexplained physical sensations. Not illness, not injury. Pressure without a clear location. Heat that moves. Heaviness in the chest that has no emotional source they can name. Tingling or buzzing at the skin surface. Ringing that seems internal rather than auditory. Originating somewhere behind the ears or at the crown, present only in stillness, disappearing when distraction is introduced. These are not hallucinations. They are the body reporting frequency data at the only resolution it has access to. The field is running a new signal. The body is translating it as best it can into physical sensation because the mind has not yet developed the interpretive capacity to receive it cleanly. The body is not malfunctioning. It is acting as a receiver mid-calibration, capable of detecting the incoming signal not yet fully tuned to its full bandwidth. The static is not the signal failing. The static is what accurate reception sounds like before the calibration completes. The fifth recognition is the one that most people arrive at last, and it is the one that retroactively reframes everything before it. The Arcturian framework calls this the origin point revelation. At some stage in the process, when enough clarity has returned, the person inside the correction begins to see that the correction did not begin when they noticed it. It began much earlier, at a point they likely dismissed or misread as coincidence, a conversation that redirected without reason, a decision that reversed without full logic, an intuitive refusal to continue a pattern that the mind could not yet justify. The kind of refusal that arrives not as a thought, but as a physical reluctance, a body-level no that precedes any conscious reasoning. A moment of stillness that descended unexpectedly and left a different quality of awareness in its place. A dream with imagery that made no sense at the time, but carries recognizable meaning now. These were not coincidences. They were the earliest activation points of a protocol that had already been authorized at the field level. The Arcturian Council does not initiate corrections randomly. Corrections are initiated when a field has reached a level of incompatibility with its original trajectory that makes continuation on that line untenable for the frequency it is now capable of carrying. When the threshold is met, the correction begins generating micro-redirections, small, quiet adjustments that accumulate over time into the large-scale reorientation that eventually becomes impossible to ignore, small enough to dismiss individually, significant enough in aggregate to have already changed the architecture of your life before you had a name for the process. Most people dismiss them. The dismissal does not stop the process. It only delays the moment of recognition. The protocol continues regardless. The correction completes regardless. The only variable is how much unnecessary suffering is generated by interpreting the correction as collapse rather than repositioning. You are watching this transmission because your field reached the threshold of legibility tonight, not because it began tonight, because it has been running long enough that the signal is no longer subtle, long enough that your body registered it before your mind could rationalize it away, long enough that the transmission could reach you at exactly the moment you were ready to stop calling what is happening to you by the wrong name. The Arcturian Signal Council does not deliver transmissions to fields that are not ready to receive them. The readiness is not a feeling of confidence or calm. It is a field condition, a level of internal coherence sufficient to hold the recognition without immediately converting it into fear or denial. If you are still here, that condition has been met. This is the final revelation that the Arcturian Signal Council delivers to fields that have crossed the threshold. You are not losing your life. You are losing your alignment with a version of your life that your field has already outgrown. That is not the same thing. The version of your life that is becoming incompatible was not a mistake. It was a precise fit for a frequency you were running at an earlier stage of your field's development. It served what it was built to serve. But fields are not static. They evolve. And when a field evolves beyond the range a life structure was designed to accommodate, that structure does not fail. It simply reaches the natural limit of its relevance. What is leaving is not being taken. It is being released from a field that can no longer hold it at the old frequency without distortion. What is staying because it is compatible with what you are actually becoming, not with who you were when you built it. And what is arriving, the new signal, the new coherence, the new architecture that is forming at the level of the field before it becomes visible in the world, has not yet fully materialized because the clearing is still in motion. But it is coming, not as a reward, not as a spiritual prize assigned to those who suffered enough or waited long enough, as the natural next state of a field that has completed its correction and is ready to stabilize at a higher point of coherence. This is not hope. This is field mechanics. A corrected field does not remain empty. It generates new signal. And new signal, when given time to stabilize, produces new architecture, new resonances, new directions, new structures built to the specification of what the field is now capable of carrying, rather than what it once required. You were not abandoned. You were repositioned. That distinction is not a comfort phrase. It is an Arcturian diagnosis. Abandonment implies a field that was discarded, deemed insufficient, left without support, cut off from the intelligence that initiated the process. Repositioning implies a field that was too significant to leave on an incompatible trajectory. A field that the correction intelligence recognized as carrying more than the old line could accommodate, and chose to intervene on accordingly. What is happening to you is not punishment for your failures. It is the consequence of your field carrying a frequency that the old line could no longer sustain without the field itself being diminished by the containment. The Arcturian Signal Council does not initiate corrections for fields that have given up. It initiates them for fields that have, at the deepest level, refused to stop growing even when the surface of life demanded stillness, compliance, and contraction. You refused, at that level. The field registered it, and the correction is the response. If you have felt all of this and still cannot find solid ground, repeat this once, aloud or in silence, and let the field register it rather than the mind. I do not fear the shift. I recognize it. That is not a wish. That is a field statement. And the field knows the difference. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process, instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.